Okay, so I'm looking at the results for Win 19, year two, and we see that we have the top three teams came in at 690, 735, and 842. Very good in the current round points. Any team over 400 points, which you see most teams here are over 400 points, all these teams here did great. So if you're under 400 points, you might want to think about refocusing your strategy and a little bit more effort into the simulation. And if you're under 200 points, then you definitely have to work a little bit harder the simulation. Now, to be fair, some teams didn't do anything, didn't complete round two of the team competition, and they were just forced forward. And before I processed the round, I went in and double checked and made sure that nothing was entered. So these teams just didn't make any progress in round two. Okay, so the top profit margin is 55% by CML. Now, this is what your investors are expecting. So we have a number of teams that are above, look at all these teams above 45%. So I'd say if you're above a gross profit margin of 45% in the second round, you're doing good. Like I said, your job is to maximize shareholders' wealth. And the way you do that is increasing gross profit margins. So shareholders expect the companies will increase gross profit margins year over year. And that's what your points are being determined on. So if your gross profit margins aren't going up, you're doing something wrong. Now, you started at the 40 percentile. So if your gross profit margins are below 40 percentile, you're going backwards, and investors are really hating on your company because you have this industry where cars are growing at double-digit percentages, so sales are growing, you have the ability to reduce your costs through operational investments, but yet, even though most teams in the industry were able to increase their profit margins, you didn't. Yours declined. So investors are not happy with that. Okay, so stock prices, we have a range between $39 and $10 per share. Return on equity between 42% and 20%. And total points. So remember, points are cumulative. So every time you run around, your points get added to total points. So some teams are more than halfway there to the total points needed for the simulation game to get the full score. And plenty of teams are doing very well. Averaging about 400 or 500 points a round, which is excellent. Like I said last video, the first round is easy to make points, but each round after that, it gets a little bit harder. But so if your total points are less than, say, 800, you should really be looking, actually, I say if they're less than 900, you should be looking in a little bit more closely about how to improve those points. So operating profit margins, we could see that this is about how effective your advertising expenses are when you look at the advertising profit margins. If you over-advertise, your operational profit margins will deteriorate and not give you a good return for the investment money you're placing in your advertising. So your earnings per share, we have some companies, 3 companies above the 99% percentile rank. This is just like an SAT percentile rank. So it's grading you against the past 2,000 other teams who played the simulation. So, and if you're below the 50 percentile, you're not doing so well. Okay, and then we have a return on assets, and then we have, of course, our net profit margin. So anywhere from 25% all the way down to 10%. So if you had money to invest in the company, would you want to invest in the company who's returning 10, 11, 13, or 14%, or invest in the company that's getting 25%? 2 companies here are getting 25% net profit margins. That's why their share prices have gone up, and that's the companies that are maximizing shareholder wealth and performing very well, 97 percentile of performance across the country here, so doing very well. Okay, so let's go back up and look at the industry charts for this. And we see that for net profits per team, we see that by and large, most teams have higher net profits. Most teams in round one, only one team surpassed 60 million in net profits, but by round two, most teams have surpassed 60 million. And if we look at the total points, we see that most teams did very well in round one, but there's more of a mixed bag in round two, because the simulation gets a little bit harder, because the better you do, the harder it is to improve upon that in the next round. Sort of like your grades. If you get a 4.0 average, how do you improve on that? You don't, So, but with this simulation, I've seen the majority of students consistently earn decent points every round, even the top team who's done the best in round one. So, we'll do a decent amount of points in round two. So we have a team over here, for example, 975 points in round one, and in round two, 483 points. So that's, fantastic. I mean, the average points are about 750 per round. At that rate, they're going to far exceed the expectations to get the full points of the simulation. So if you see the stock price, we have one company here doing very well on stock price because they have very good earnings and they're growing their per share variables and their earnings percentages. And we have a lot of companies here just sort of running the gamut between $30 and $10. So if you look at sales per team, we have this company still number one in sales. But number one in sales doesn't mean number one in points or number one in profits. You could easily be the number one in sales auto manufacturer. So just put your cars at the lowest price possible as far as sales price, spend a lot of money in advertising, and you'll easily be number one in sales. However, that's not number one in profits, and profits are what count. If I was going to tell you, I'm going to give you a company, one that has 100 million in sales and one that has 200 billion in sales, which company would you rather have? So most people say, yeah, 200 billion in sales, I'll take that company. And then I tell you that, oh yeah, that company has $100 billion in losses. And I said, well, what about the other company with $100 million in sales? Oh, that company with $100 million in sales has $80 million in profits. So now I'll give you the choice again. Which company would you rather take? And people will definitely say, I'll take the $100 million company with the $80 million in profits, please, because that's much better to have than the companies that's going to generate $100 billion in losses. So this is why sales, they're important, but what's really important is the profits that these sales generate. Okay, so if you look at earnings per team, we have this one company here still dominating the market, but we had a couple companies here, Zoom Cars and MPA, that really did improve their earnings per share for the round, which is great. Okay, so that's my quick little recap. Stay tuned for the next video where I'm going to give you some advice on how to complete round 3. Thank you.